March 15, 2024, Moscow. Three men in tactical gear walked into Steven Seagal's dojo at 3:47 p.m. The documentary crew was rolling. Seagal was demonstrating basic holds to a class of 12 students. The lead gunman raised his weapon and said 4 words in broken English. "Time to die, actor." What happened in the next 4 minutes broke the internet. The footage went viral in 6 languages. Intelligence agencies from 3 countries held emergency meetings because of it. Because nobody, absolutely nobody, moves like that at 71 years old. The man they thought was a joke systematically dismantled trained killers with his bare hands. Every move was captured in crystal clear 4K. Every bone break, every pressure point, every technique that doesn't exist in any movie. The night the world discovered Steven Seagal wasn't acting. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The first gunman hit the mat before his finger found the trigger. Seagal moved like water breaking a dam, fluid, inevitable, devastating. The documentary camera, mounted on a fixed tripod for what was supposed to be a routine demonstration, captured everything in unforgiving detail. Frame by frame, it recorded the precise moment when Hollywood fiction became deadly reality. The lead assassin's Makarov pistol spun through the air, his wrist bent at an angle that made the students gasp. But Seagal wasn't done. His elbow drove into the man's solar plexus with surgical precision, dropping him to his knees. A ridge hand to the carotid artery, and the first threat was neutralized, unconscious before he understood what hit him. 12 seconds. The second gunman was raising his weapon when Seagal's peripheral vision caught the movement. The actor, no, the operative, stepped inside the gun's arc, his massive frame moving with impossible grace. His left hand trapped the weapon while his right delivered a devastating palm strike to the attacker's sternum. The crack echoed through the dojo like a gunshot. The students scattered, screaming in Russian and broken English. Chairs toppled. The smell of fierce sweat filled the air. But the documentary crew kept rolling, frozen in professional instinct or simple terror. 28 seconds. The third assassin had the presence of mind to create distance, backing toward the wall while keeping his AK-74 trained on Seagal. Smart, professional. It wouldn't matter. "You are not Steven Seagal," the man said in accented English, his voice tight with confusion and growing terror. "Seagal is fat American movie star. Joke man. You are—" "Dead wrong," Seagal replied, his voice carrying that familiar gravelly tone that had launched 1,000 movie trailers. But underneath the Hollywood drawl was something else, something cold and surgical that belonged in back-alley interrogation rooms, not on movie screens. The third gunman's mistake was hesitation. In that half-second of uncertainty, Seagal moved. Not the lumbering, choreographed movements from his direct-to-video films of the past decade. This was something else entirely. Systematic, economical, lethal. He covered the 8 feet between them like he was 20 years younger and 50 pounds lighter. His hand found the rifle barrel, redirecting it skyward. Plaster rained from the ceiling as rounds went wide. The attacker tried to adjust, but Seagal's other hand was already at his throat, fingers finding pressure points with the precision of a surgeon. The man's eyes rolled back. The rifle clattered to the floor. 43 seconds. 3 professional killers neutralized. The dojo fell silent except for the whir of the documentary camera and the ragged breathing of terrified students. Seagal stood among the unconscious bodies, not even winded, his black jeep barely wrinkled. For a moment, the only sound was the distant hum of Moscow traffic through the windows. Then the questions started. "Sensei," whispered Dmitri, his youngest student, a 19-year-old computer science major who joined the dojo because he thought martial arts looked cool in movies. How did you—" Seagal looked directly into the documentary camera, and for just a moment, his carefully constructed facade slipped. The students saw something in his eyes that made them step back, a darkness that belonged to places where people disappeared and questions weren't asked. "Turn off the camera," he said quietly. The documentary director, a thin German named Klaus, who'd pitched this as a feel-good story about an aging action star finding peace through teaching, fumbled for the power button. His hands shook so badly he nearly dropped the equipment. "Leave it running," came a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. A woman stood silhouetted against the afternoon light, tall, elegant, with the kind of posture that spoke of military training and expensive suits. She stepped into the dojo, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, completely ignoring the unconscious bodies. "Agent Volkov," Seagal said, his voice flat. "Right on schedule." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Actually, I'm running late." These three were supposed to be the warm-up act. The students exchanged terrified glances. Dmitri pulled out his phone, probably thinking about calling the police, but Seagal's hand clamped down on his wrist. "No police," the actor said. Then to Volkov, "Let them go. This is between us." "I'm afraid not." Volkov produced a tablet, swiped to a video file, and held it up so the camera could see. "This little demonstration is already uploading to 17 different servers across 6 continents. The world is about to meet the real Steven Seagal." On the screen, security footage showed Seagal's fight from multiple angles. The dojo's hidden cameras had captured everything. But that wasn't what made his blood freeze. The timestamp showed the upload had begun 3 minutes before the attack started. "You wanted this filmed," he realized. Volkov's smile widened. "Steven, meet your public. Public, meet America's most valuable double agent." The documentary camera kept rolling, recording the moment Steven Seagal's 8-year game of shadows finally stepped into the light. The weight of exposure hit Seagal like a physical blow. 8 years of carefully constructed lies. 8 years of playing the washed-up actor while walking the razor's edge between Moscow and Langley, unraveling in real time. The documentary camera's red recording light felt like a sniper's laser sight on his forehead. "Dmitri," he said quietly, never taking his eyes off Volkov. "Take the others. Leave through the back exit. Go to your girlfriend's place. Don't go home tonight." The boy, because that's what he was, really, just a kid who'd wandered into a wolf's den thinking it was a petting zoo, started to protest. "But Sensei, we can't just—" "Now." The command carried enough authority to make the student step back. Seagal had learned that tone in a windowless room in Quantico 23 years ago, refined it in hotel rooms from Beirut to Bangkok, where a soft voice often meant the difference between intelligence and a bullet. As his students filed out, their footsteps echoing in the sudden emptiness, Seagal felt something crack inside his chest. Not ribs. He'd had enough of those broken over the years to know the difference. This was deeper. These kids had been his anchor to something resembling normal life. Dmitri brought him pictures of his girlfriend. Anya always stayed after class to help stack mats, chattering about her engineering courses. Victor, the shy one with the stutter, had finally managed a full conversation last week about his mother's borscht recipe. They'd never be safe around him again. The dojo suddenly felt cavernous without their presence. Afternoon sunlight slanted through the windows, illuminating dust motes that danced above the unconscious assassins like golden snow. The smell of old wood and honest sweat, scents that had comforted him for 8 years, now felt like a mausoleum. Volkov circled him slowly, her heels clicking a funeral march on the hardwood. "Do you know what I love about this place?" she asked conversationally. "The photographs." She gestured toward the wall where dozens of pictures documented 8 years of small victories. Dmitri receiving his first belt promotion. The shy girl who'd learned to break boards after 3 months of trying. The group photo from last Christmas, when they'd all stayed late to share vodka and stories. "I've been watching you build this little family," Volkov continued. "Very touching, very human. The perfect cover for a man trying to forget what he really is." Seagal's jaw tightened. She was right, and they both knew it. Every student who'd walked through that door had been a small rebellion against the machine that had made him. Every lesson taught, every belt awarded, every moment of genuine laughter, it was all an attempt to build something clean on top of foundations soaked in blood. "What do you want, Anya?" The use of her first name was deliberate, intimate, a reminder that they'd shared more than just intelligence over the years. Moscow winters were long and cold, and sometimes even operatives needed human warmth. Her smile flickered. "You know what I want. The same thing I've always wanted. The Treadstone files. The complete list of everyone who went through the program. Names, locations, current identities. I told you before, I don't have access anymore." That was before your little performance went viral. She held up the tablet. The view counter was climbing. 50,000, 75,000, breaking 6 figures as they watched. Langley will burn you now. So will my superiors. Your only chance is to give me what I need and disappear into whatever hole the Americans have prepared for situations like this. The documentary camera continued its mechanical observation, the filmmaker forgotten behind his lens. Klaus had probably realized by now that he'd stumbled into something far beyond his pay grade, but professional instinct or simple terror kept him recording. Seagal moved to the window, looking out at the Moscow street where normal people lived normal lives. A babushka fed pigeons from a park bench. Children chased a soccer ball between parked cars. A young couple shared cigarettes and secrets in a doorway. All of it so beautifully ordinary, so far removed from the world of midnight phone calls and encrypted messages that had defined his existence. "You want to know the funny thing?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "For 8 years, I actually thought I could have both. Keep feeding intelligence to stay valuable. Keep the dojo to stay human. Play the long game until I could extract myself clean." He touched one of the photographs, last month's belt ceremony. Dmitri grinning like he'd conquered the world because he'd finally mastered a throw that had been giving him trouble. In the background, Seagal remembered, Victor had been teaching the new girl how to fall safely. Small kindnesses, passed from one generation to the next. "The moment those 3 walked through my door, it was over," he continued. "Wasn't it? This was never about extracting intelligence. This was about exposure, about ending the game entirely." Volkov's reflection appeared beside his in the window glass. "Welcome to the endgame, Stephen. The only question now is whether you walk away from it or get buried under it." The secure phone in Seagal's office started ringing. Not the regular line that students used to ask about class schedules, or his publicist called to discuss European appearances. This was the encrypted satellite phone buried in his desk drawer beneath 20 years of accumulated detritus, expired passports under forgotten names, ammunition for weapons he no longer owned, and a single photograph of a woman whose face he'd tried to forget for 2 decades. The phone hadn't rung in 4 months. When it did ring, people usually died. "Answer it," Volkov said, her voice carrying a note of genuine curiosity. "Let's see which master calls first." Seagal hesitated. The phone's distinctive double-pulse ring continued, insistent and mechanical. Each ring felt like a countdown to something irreversible. Behind his lens, Klaus adjusted focus, instinctively understanding that whatever was about to happen would define the rest of this nightmare. He opened the drawer and lifted the phone. The display showed only a string of numbers that meant nothing to civilians and everything to people in his former profession. Moscow routing, but the prefix indicated a relay through 3 different continents. Serious tradecraft for a serious conversation. Seagal. "Jesus Christ, Stephen." The voice belonged to James Morrison, his former handler at Langley. But Morrison sounded different. Older, worn down by whatever he'd been watching unfold from Virginia. "Tell me you didn't just torch 20 years of deep cover operations for a fucking YouTube moment." Through the window, Seagal watched the babushka scatter her last handful of breadcrumbs. The pigeons descended in a gray flutter of wings, fighting over scraps while she shuffled away, already forgotten. He understood exactly how she felt. "Hello, Jim. I was wondering when you'd call." The video's at 2 million views and climbing. CNN picked it up 30 minutes ago. They're running it with a banner that says Hollywood or reality, like it's some kind of parlor trick. Morrison's breathing was audible across the encrypted connection, shallow, rapid, the respiration of a man watching his career burn in real time. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Volkov moved closer, close enough that her perfume mixed with the lingering smell of cordite from the brief firefight. She was enjoying this, savoring the moment when carefully constructed worlds collided and shattered. "I defended myself," Seagal said simply. 3 men with automatic weapons tried to kill me. I stopped them. That's what you trained me to do." "What I trained you to do was stay invisible." Morrison's voice cracked like a whip. "Your entire value was predicated on being exactly what everyone thought you were, a washed-up actor playing dress-up with Russian oligarchs. Now every intelligence agency in the world is going to want to know what a supposedly retired martial arts instructor was doing with Spetsnaz-level combat skills. The truth hung in the air like smoke from a discharged weapon. For 8 years, Seagal had fed Moscow carefully curated intelligence, real enough to maintain credibility, limited enough to avoid genuine damage. In return, he'd provided Langley with insights into Russian operations that had saved American lives from Syria to Venezuela, a delicate dance that required everyone to believe Steven Seagal was exactly what he appeared to be. That illusion had just died in 4 minutes and 43 seconds of documented violence. "There's more," Morrison continued, his voice dropping to the tone reserved for terminal diagnoses. "We've been monitoring chatter since your little exhibition went public. The Chinese are mobilizing assets in Moscow. The Brits activated a dormant network they haven't touched in 5 years. Even the fucking French are suddenly interested in your dojo." Seagal closed his eyes. In the intelligence world, when everyone started moving at once, it meant one thing: a secret valuable enough to kill for had been exposed. The question was what secret, and who would pay the highest price to keep it buried. "Jim," he said quietly, "the attack was staged. Someone wanted this filmed." The silence stretched across continents, filled only by the encrypted static of a connection bouncing between satellites and servers. When Morrison spoke again, his voice carried the weight of a man recognizing his own grave. "Steven, I need you to listen very carefully. In 1994, you were part of a Treadstone operation in Belgrade. Target designation, Marko Petrov, Serbian war criminal. You eliminated him and retrieved a briefcase containing financial records. Do you remember?" The photograph in the drawer seemed to burn against the wood. Sarah Chen, their communications specialist on that operation. The woman who died because someone had leaked their position. The woman whose face had haunted 28 years of nightmares. "I remember." Petrov's son just posted a video claiming he has evidence that proves his father was assassinated by American operatives. He's promising to release everything tomorrow unless the killer is delivered to international authorities. Morrison paused. "He used your real name, Steven. The name from the operation files." The phone slipped from Seagal's suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering to the floor as the past finally caught up with the present. The secure phone's dial tone droned like a flatlined heart monitor. Seagal stared at the device on the floor, watching its encryption light fade from green to black. 28 years of carefully buried history had just clawed its way to the surface, and the taste in his mouth was copper and ash. Marko Petrov. Volkov spoke the name like a prayer, or perhaps a curse. Now there's a ghost I haven't heard mentioned in Moscow circles for quite some time. Seagal's hands moved without conscious thought, muscle memory from 1,000 paranoid nights driving him to the window. The street below looked the same, babushka gone, children still playing soccer, young couples still sharing their cigarette. But now he saw the surveillance. The man reading a newspaper on the bench hadn't turned a page in 10 minutes. The taxi driver across the street had been checking his mirror too frequently. The woman walking her dog had passed the same corner 3 times. "How long have they been there?" he asked. Volkov joined him at the window, her shoulder brushing his. "Since about 2 hours after your little performance went live. Serbian intelligence works fast when they're motivated." She paused, studying his reflection in the glass. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Steven. Bad memories?" He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Belgrade, 1994. Sarah Chen's face as the sniper's bullet took her head apart like a ripe melon. The weight of Petrov's briefcase as he dragged it through 3 miles of urban warfare. The complete financial records of a genocide. Enough evidence to topple governments and send war criminals to The Hague. And somewhere in those documents, bank routing numbers that connected to accounts across Eastern Europe, including several in Moscow that belonged to men who now held positions of considerable power. Men who would kill to keep those connections buried. The documentary camera had never stopped rolling. Klaus seemed to have forgotten he was holding it, the device becoming an extension of his nervous system as he recorded the slow-motion destruction of everything Steven Seagal had built. The filmmaker's face was pale behind his viewfinder, but his hands remained steady. Professional instinct or simple shock, either way, Every word, every revelation was being preserved in digital amber. "I need to make a call," Seagal said. "To whom?" Volkov's voice carried genuine curiosity. "Your American handlers just heard their asset's name connected to a 28-year-old assassination. They're probably already drafting your obituary. And my superiors—" She laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. "Let's just say they have a very low tolerance for complications." Seagal moved to his desk, pulling out a different phone, a simple burner device that looked like something a teenager would use for texting. He'd been carrying the number in his head for 3 years, never quite able to delete it, never brave enough to dial it. But desperate times demanded desperate measures. The phone rang twice before a woman's voice answered. "Da? Katya, it's Steven." The silence that followed felt like falling into deep water. When Katya Chen finally spoke, her words carried the weight of old grief and older anger. "You have some fucking nerve calling this number. Your sister—" "My sister is dead because of you." The words cut like surgical steel. "Because someone leaked your operation to the Serbs. Because someone wanted Petrov's briefcase badly enough to sacrifice an entire team. Katya, listen to me. Petrov's son is about to release those files. The one Sarah died to retrieve. Everything she sacrificed is about to become public." Another pause. Through the phone he could hear the distant sound of Moscow traffic. She was in the city, close enough to matter, far enough to run if this went bad. "Why should I care?" But her voice had changed. Sarah's sister had inherited more than just her sibling's face. She'd inherited the same analytical mind that had made Sarah one of the best communication specialists in Treadstone's history. Katya was already thinking 3 moves ahead. Because whoever leaked our position in '94 is still out there, still connected. And if those files go public, they're going to need a scapegoat. He looked directly into Klaus's camera. "Someone already tried to kill me today. 3 professionals with military-grade weapons. But they wanted it filmed. They wanted proof that Steven Seagal isn't what the world thinks he is." Volkov was watching him with the intensity of a hawk studying wounded prey. Behind her calculated composure, he could see the wheels turning. She'd known about Petrov's son, known about the threat. Hell, she'd probably been counting on it. "Where are you?" Katya asked finally. "The dojo. But I won't be here long." "Good. Because as of 15 minutes ago, you officially don't exist. FSB just erased your residency records. Your student visas, your business permits, all gone. You're about to become a very illegal man in a very dangerous city." The line went dead. Seagal looked at the phone's blank display, then at Volkov's satisfied smile. "Welcome to the wilderness, Steven," she said softly. "Population you,